Welcome back to Make It Mondays, and this week I'm actually pulling out an old pattern and showing how a change of color can change how it looks. So the pattern is going to be from one of my pattern books. This is still available on Etsy, and the digital version is available on Ravelry. And we're going to be working on these. So they are, in here they're called Hellfire wrist warmers. They're fingerless gloves. Unfortunately, industry says I can't call them that in a pattern because they don't go up onto the fingers and split for each finger. So they're either fingerless mitts or they are wrist warmers. They are Hellfire for this version because this was all named for villains. So Hellfire being for Frollo. And in the original, it is red and purple with the mitten being black. I'm going to do them, since it is currently winter. Yes, it is past the holidays, but it is currently winter, with blue and white. So the blue is going to be the cuffs, the white is going to be the body. So let me get everything turned around and set up. And while I'm doing that, if you are interested in seeing more, hit subscribe. If you like this video, please hit like, and I'll see you in a minute. So this has been a while since I've made these gloves, so I am having to look at the actual pattern. The needle size is not on here because it is on the front page of the book. And then everything else is written out. So we're going to start with the flame cuff. So I've cast it on my 8. I'm going to try to get the pattern just off screen so it's not mucking up the white balance too badly. Knit 1, purl 3, and then knit 4. So the cuff does get longer and shorter as it goes through, to make the little points that look kind of like flames. Slip stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, yarn over and knit 2. But in general, this is just going to be pretty basic lace work. All the way along the cuff. Yes, I am actually having to read as I go. But yeah, it's going to be pretty basic lace work. I will come back to show how the end of the cuff meets back with the bind on or cast on edge, because it is a binding off connection. So I'll be back in a bit to show how that works and be back in just a bit. Okay, so here we are at the end of one of the cuffs. So I'm going to be binding off purl-wise. So in my case, that means I'm purling into the stitch and then pulling the previous stitch over. And actually, I'm going to back up that last one just a smidge, because we're going to bring up this. So actually, no, I'm going to redo that, because that's where the normal bind off of each round was going. Then going to insert my needle through the cast on edge, purling, bringing it through and up and over, insert, purl, bring it through, up and over, last one that way, And then we're going to move the yarn to the other side, knit, and do the same steps past there. And then once this is all the way bound off, I will cut the yarn and get ready for the next step. So I'll be back in just a minute. So here I am with the cuff and ready to add it on to the main body of the wrist warmer. So I'm going to insert through the slipped stitch, drop a loop, and another one. Now I can just do it this way. A lot of people can't. But this way, the reason for the slip stitches is so this is easier. I'm going to go all the way around, double check my counts, and make sure that I've got 28 stitches on here. And then I'm just going to be knitting plain for a little bit, and I'll show you how the second cuff gets connected in. And then, so I will be right back. So I've got the first cuff on, I've got the first little bit done. Now it's time to connect the second cuff. So I'm going to slip it on around the first one, then make sure that that seam is right where my knitting is. Pulling all the ends out of the way so they don't get in the way. And starting in the first slip stitch and the first stitch on the needles, knitting and pulling through, and repeating that all the way around to connect the cuff on. So same basic idea as the initial row, but instead of just picking up stitches, I am knitting onto what's already there. Okay. And I'm going to continue this for a little bit. I'll be back to show how the thumb increases are worked. As you can see, which needle goes through is less important. Yeah, how the thumb is worked and finished off. And then we're almost done. Be back in just a second. So I've gotten to the last increase. I'm going to knit one, make one. That's the make one left. Knit across. Now the pattern says to do this with markers on to mark where the gusset is. Because I've been doing variations of this, I tend not to do the markers. So making one right, I'm picking up the leg of the stitch below and knitting through it, then knitting. So now I'm going to knit back to the start of the gusset again. So go all the way around and back to there. I'm going to purl the gusset, and then I will be back to show the next little step. So I've gone all the way back around and it's time to bind off. So I'm knitting two, pulling the second stitch back over, knitting one, second stitch across. So that's going to be all the way across these stitches. Let me get all the way across it. There are other ways to do this bind off. This is just the one I find easy. For some of the other projects, I will use a crochet hook to do this instead, because what it really is a slip stitch from crochet. So that's the last one that is being bound off. Now I've got my little opening for my thumb, but I need to close it off, which will be on the next round. Give me a sec. Okay, so now we're all the way back around, doing a make one to the right, and then I'm doing a 1/1 cable without a knitting, without a cable needle. So I'm knitting into the second stitch, knitting into the first stitch, pulling them both off, and then I'm doing a make one left. And that closes everything off. The rest of this is just knits, purls, and bind off. So I will be back to show you what they look like when they're done. Maybe with the end still there, maybe not, we'll see. And here are the gloves all done. Very different from the purple, red, and black version as far as look, exact same pattern. So if you find a pattern where you like the idea of it, but you want it in a different color, entirely possible. So I hope this is giving you some inspiration. If you like the video, you want to see more of these, please comment below what of my old patterns you want to see done, possibly in a different colorway, possibly with another little twist. And like and subscribe if you want to see more. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when the videos go up. And I'll see you next time on Make It Mondays. Bye.